Hi, Joe. Welcome to our Elite Leaders Insights for the partners that are associated with Elite. The purpose of today is to find out a little bit more about you as an individual within Timesheet Portal and what Timesheet Portal actually does for the recruitment market. So, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a bit of potted history about the business, about you, and a little bit of an overview about what Timesheet Portal actually does, that'd be great.
Sure. No, thank you. So I'll start with me. So my name's Joe Holloway. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director here at Unfold Software. We're the company behind the Timesheet Portal product. So I'll talk to you a bit more about that in a moment. But in terms of myself, so I'm actually Blackpool born and bred originally. I made my escape from there as soon as I could when I was about 18. I went to uni and I studied physics there, which I enjoyed, but I got the sense that whilst I liked bits of it, that I was never going to become a scientist, and it changed the world on that basis. So I travelled for a few years. I did a lot of skiing. That's probably I guess you could say my passion. But about 10 years ago, I moved into working with software. So that's always been my background. Whilst I wouldn't position myself as a techie, I've always worked on or with software solutions and with businesses to streamline workflows mainly. That's been the key focus. I've worked in a lot of different industry sectors, but 5 years ago, I joined Unfold Software, fairly small company at the time. I came on board to ramp up the sales and the marketing side of things. And really the bulk of my job sees me working, at least on the recruitment side of our business, with owners of recruitment agencies that are either potentially starting up with a temp and a permanent desk, or perhaps they have an established perm desk and they're just starting out on the temp side. So I work with them to size up the problems and assess what options are going to work for them in their software stack, which brings us into the system. It's called Timesheet Portal, so the name gives us away a little bit, but I wouldn't let that pigeonhole us. We are focused on the mid to back office areas for agencies. We work to streamline out that mid office process through timesheets, statements of work submissions, expense submissions by the contractual, the temp workforce, with the eye always being on the prize. It's about helping agencies to pay and bill quicker. That's the key mantra of this, because a timesheet is really, it's an invoice or it's a pay justification at the end of the day. We understand that. So we have, very good timesheet functionality in the market, but the wider consideration always needs to be, what other pieces of software are agencies using, and how do we fit in? So that's my day-to-day.
Yeah. No, thank you, Joe. And it's a world that I know pretty well, so I'm very familiar with the pains that some recruiters out there are going through. What's the challenges that you're experiencing from a recruiter at the moment? But from my past experience, a lot of old school methodologies that recruiters like to do is spreadsheet based and manual labor tasks orientated. There's many people within a recruitment group that love to do this manual tasks without digitalizing it, because they like to have that element of control. So what challenges are you experiencing from new customers, existing customers, recruitment in general?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Well, look, often what we've found in the past is that the sort of what our own clients, the agencies, are limited by is often by what their own end clients are putting in front of them in terms of requirements for their own, collaboration. For example, agencies that focus in construction and healthcare, for example, those tend to be areas where it's not a very technical term, but they can have a bit more of an old school setup. It can be, a requirement to do the timesheet through Excel or paper or WhatsApp groups, or even just a phone call to register the time that's been worked. So, where we can help, I guess, navigate that is often just based on the amount of dev work that we've put into the system. A timesheet is just a timesheet until there's some sort of additional requirement there in terms of the workflow from agency to agency. So, for example, I guess the bread and butter timesheet workflow would see a contractor logging in, submitting the time, and the client then approving it. That's all well and good. Probably about 70% of the agencies we work with will have that. Others will say things like, okay, our clients have got their own internal timesheet system and they want our workers to record that. So how do we get that into the system? Well, there might be trust issues there. The agency or their end client just might not trust the boots on the ground, the worker, to put the time into a timesheet system correctly. So we have avenues for the internal administrating team to put that data in, or actually for the end client to put that in as well. So I guess, answering your question, the challenges really do, I think it comes from at a base, there's time being lost, or there's an awful amount of human error that goes through. That means an agency that's trying to scale, if they don't go with software, they need to go, well, we need to get another person into accounts, we need to get another person into operation. That if you don't have a system, a good software stack that can deal with it, that's really your only options. That's where we come in. We try and be a bit disruptive and sort of ask the questions of, are you doing this because it's the best way for you and your business and the client, or are you doing it this way because you've always done it that way? And obviously, if we can make it so that they don't have to hire a new person internally or two, or reallocate the resource that they've already got, that's often a win for the agency, plus all of the the time saving and the reduction in human error, and just the brand enhancement that comes with having a nice client facing system can obviously be a bit of a differentiator when they're going for new business as well. We can't talk enough about things like the fear of change as well, particularly for agencies. It sometimes feels like a bit of a mountain to climb when you're trying to put new systems in place. So, we always have to accommodate a bit of that fear of change. And it's normally about finding a good middle ground between, minimizing the disruption for an agency versus trying to get them all of the automated options in there that the MD or the owner of the company will want, because the individuals that are actually doing the day-to-day activity around the pay and the bill and the timesheets, they'll often come with their own opinions, and I wouldn't say their own agenda, but they have their focuses. They want to look out for themselves and their role as well. So we've had to be pretty adept at navigating that and helping businesses with it.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And again, my sentiments agree with your comments, because of the fact that I understand the needs and requirements that are there, but the recruiter doesn't want to disrupt his or her business. But look, in an ideal world, the perfect world, a recruiter sometimes comes to me and says, Adam, I want a tech stack that can do front, middle, and back. Go and find me that perfect solution. Now, more often than not, it's a very difficult one to solve. And I'm sure there's tech companies out there that are, building this front to back, end to end, however it's described in the marketplace, to try and fulfill it. Now, I know that you work with quite a lot of ATS and CRM systems that exist in the market for the recruiter. One in particular is another partner, Firefish, which speaks very highly of you and your system. So is that something that you're now familiar with? Do you have relationships with most front end CRM ATS systems, Joe? Is that the way it works?
Yeah, very, very much. And also on the other side, because if you imagine if our software is in the middle, at the front you've got your CRM ATS, and in the back you've got your accounts and your payroll software. So yes, we've got relationships with a lot of other providers out there, and as you said, Wendy and the team at Firefish, we do an awful lot of work with. They're actually the ones that introduced us to Elite in the first place as part of our partnership there. But touching on what you've said, normally when we look at the mid office, there's, aside from doing something like throwing additional resource at it and keep plugging away with the manual route, if we're thinking software solutions, there's normally two options there. One is you go with a company that is looking to provide every single facet of the workflow. So CRM, timesheets built in, and the accounting package, let's say, as part of that. That often means, and the phrase that comes to mind sometimes for that is jack of all trades, master of none. We hear this from a lot of our clients that have tried to go with with a CRM system that has, for example, timesheets built in, and the CRM might be very good. It can do some good things there, but often it can fall down in the mid office because they've just not been focused on that piece. It can be very complicated, and there can be a number of different workflows that need to run in parallel with each other. So our approach with this has been to focus on the area that we're very good at, be best in class at that, and partner with like-minded providers and solutions that do the same. And then we run an integration piece. So an API transfer of data essentially rules out any need to manually move data from one system to another. It comes with a lot of options to configure it, and we spent a lot of time on these connections. For example, an invoice transfer to Xero, you click the export button, the invoice goes straight over. It totally removes any manual input there. But in terms of the bigger picture, what it means for the agencies, they can literally cherry pick the systems that they want in the different areas, and then they can be connected up, rather than having to be in a situation where they're saying, well, okay, we quite like this bit, but then we're paying for this bit that's, it's sort of a bolt-on from an all-encompass provider that you wouldn't really normally see those being best in class, because again, it's almost an upsell opportunity for them. It's a piece that's been added on to make their product a little bit stickier, to push the retention rates up.
Thank you, Joe. It makes a lot of sense. So since the pandemic, certain sectors have had, a bit of a tough time. Hospitality, let's use that one as a classic example, and the aviation markets and travel and tourism, almost fell off a cliff, and people are really struggling. But I believe obviously they've now made a comeback. Recruiters have obviously have a lot of staff that they need to manage, through time sheeting. Are these big areas, big sectors for you? Is it construction, healthcare, hospitality? Is it the large volume-based industrial manufacturing, that type of client? Is that a big sweet spot for you, would you say, or are you across the board?
We're across the board, which is a bit of a wishy-washy answer, because it's, we work with pretty much every sector focus in recruitment that there is. I think, the pandemic and obviously the lockdown that happened was definitely trying times, as we know, for recruitment, and our clients were no different. We did see obviously a very big drop off in usage for agencies focused in things like education, because the schools were closed, and hospitality. That being said, we did, during the pandemic, we picked up a lot of new business from companies that were still open. Construction, you've touched on, that is a big area for us. We do an awful lot of work in construction. Obviously, things like logistics and healthcare and cleaning, they all did very well during the pandemic. So we actually brought a lot of those on during that 1.5, 2 year period. In terms of the size, again, there's no common themes there. I mean, we have agencies working with us that have got 1 or 2 owners. They've got 5 contractors going out, and they're using Timesheet Portal for, let's say, timesheets and invoicing. We've also got agencies that have got 2,500 contractors or temps going through the system each week. The system is able to scale up or downwards based on what they actually require, and that obviously reflects in terms of how we charge our clients, but actually also in terms of the modules that they take. The system has a modular approach to it. Again, going back to what I said about cherry picking, they can cherry pick the external systems and connect them, but they can actually cherry pick the features and the modules that they want to use in the system. So, very good top-notch functionality in each area, but they don't have to take every area, which means we tend to be a path of least resistance. That means we can work with just about any agency, really.
That flexibility is massively important, and I'm sure that's going to be music to some of our members' ears, and also the recruitment world's ears, because if you have that sort of plug and play, that sort of, ability to be adaptable and flexible, from software tech, where I've experienced in the past, things have come in and they've been very rigid. As soon as it becomes too rigid, people don't use it. And that's where most software tech fail. They may look pretty and they may look good in the demonstration and also through the pre-sales process, but when it comes to the operations and the getting down to brass tacks of getting the system to work, if again it's very rigid and it's not flexible and it doesn't adapt and adopt to a certain sector, then the resistance is not to use it. And that's when the people come up in the board say, well, we spent all this money, why aren't we using it? That's another reason why I set up what I'm doing, to try and overcome that objection, and also the ability to show and demonstrate that, be careful who you really do choose, because it's difficult out there to invest in something that you think's going to work, and sometimes it can have the adverse effect. So but look, Joe, I know we could probably spend hours and hours on these types of calls, but just one final quick question is, why Elite? Since you've been invited, thank you for mentioning that Wendy kindly invited you along. But what is it about Elite that you found, perhaps if you're a member of other groups, that stands out? What is it that it makes Elite sort of stand out from the other, perhaps, advisory networks that exist?
Sure. I'd say the thing that struck me is how collaborative the group is. I think the Elite Group's very good at providing support for everybody that needs it, and I'd actually count us in that as well. From a high level, we are part of other networking groups. I'd certainly say in terms of the level of engagement we have with the clients, it's second to none. Also, in terms of keeping our finger on the pulse of what's going on with the industry in general, you've got a lot of brain power available. There's a lot of high flyers there that are doing it or have done it, and everybody seems willing to sort of share experience and time with others, which is really nice. There's also, I've been sat on the meetings and the calls that we did on Zoom during lockdown, not expecting that I was going to take away some pointers for us in terms of how to run the business, and very much it's been the case. So it gives us some really good visibility. It's connecting us with like-minded suppliers. Our partnership model it's paramount for how we do business. It's also a nice group. There's a lot of support there. There's a lot of people looking out for each other, which is, you don't see enough of that these days. It's been very good, and it's continuing to grow for us. So we're happy.
Yeah, no, we've got a lot of proven, trusted advisors. Also, a lot of partners that I feel are, again, taking a lot of the takeaways, as you like to call them, from our guest speakers, our strategy, Zoom calls, our face-to-face events that we can now get out and see. And we are attracting a lot of recruiters to come and find us as well, Joe. So, I value your input. I value your comments and your ability to, speak up when the time is right, when allowed on these sort of calls, that we are able to engage with a market and audience, which is an area of expertise that you have some knowledge and some ability to discuss. So, long may that continue, and, keep it up, because I think you're, again, a valid added partner to us. We appreciate what you're doing in terms of, adding value to our members, but also I feel there's a wider audience out there that should, come and find out, have a demo, and see what, Timesheet Portal is all about. And I'm sure this will happen after this particular session. If they didn't know you exist, they now know now. So thanks, Joe. Have a fantastic day. Look forward to seeing you hopefully on our conference on the 23rd, which you probably had your invite to. And it's a great way of collaborating, getting everybody in a room, saying hello to people that you do know or don't know, and hey, you might get some business off the back of it. You never know. It's the face to face is becoming much more of the norm, isn't it? So now again, so it's great to get back out there, and yeah, I'll buy you a beer as well. I'll probably owe you a beer. So how about that?
I can say there's some networking drinks afterwards as well, isn't there? So that's
There is indeed.